Good morning, everybody. Little thing about me, I've been a coder since 1982. This means I'm old. That's not what I get paid for anymore. I still do coding for my personal brain health, let's say that. I spend a lot of time talking with people, and then I like coding to get some safety in my brain. Even storming is the thing I'm just doing mostly all around the world now. Another thing that I do is just smelling bullshit. I'm getting also kind of a weird fame about it. And then I run this company, Coperta. And but that's not the main topic. I would like to start from this. Okay, so this microphone is just telling me that I can't move from here. Sorry. How many people here know about this book? Too few. That's definitely too few. So one of my goals is basically to give you a kick in the butt to buy this book. Because this book is just like, I haven't finished yet, I'm still reading it, but just like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. So it's basically a large-scale survey and data coming from the people behind the DevOps movement, behind the idea of continuous delivery, continuous integration, and DevOps. And the Phoenix Project, if you haven't heard about this book, that's another book that you have to read. It's actually really fun and compelling. What is the thing behind the book? It's just like now they have data. One of the great weaknesses in the Agile community in the past years is just like many people were advocating good practices. Oh, yes, but you never know. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Bullshit. No, now we have data, we have science, and science is actually saying something after a very large sample, and just like DevOps is working really well. Well, this is good and bad because the idea of DevOps is not very well formalized, so we need to understand what DevOps mean in this scenario. But I'm quoting, the findings from our research program shows clearly that the value of adopting DevOps is even larger than we had initially thought, and the gap between high and low performers continues to grow. Two big things. So we have one thing which is proven. So for laggards that we need to wait the data in order to make a decision, well, now you have the data, so you have to make a decision. At the same time, you probably have been waiting too long. The gap between high and low performer continues to grow. Put in another way, maybe we're not already in the same league. So what is DevOps? What is the key traits of this phenomenon? Just like frequent code deployments, fast lead time from commit to deploy, fast recovery from downtime, and lower change failure rate. How frequent? The distance up to 46 times more frequently in good performing companies. Faster lead time up to 400 times faster from commit to deploy. I mean, some companies are releasing in cycles of months. Some companies are releasing with cycles of minutes. This is making a huge difference. Faster meantime, recovery from downtime. This is more in the ops area, which is not my territory. I'm more in the dev area. But these numbers are kind of striking. So what is the solution, now that I gave you this kick in the butt, well, just hire some DevOps. Well, actually not. This is actually guaranteed not to be working. That hiring people is definitely not the solution. What about microservices? I mean, we have data, and the microservices is the biggest hype of the last years. Well, there's a little correlation, like there is a higher adoption between high performers, but no great significant differences according to the architecture. So the architecture is relevant, but only to a given extent. So put in another way, my bad summary, just microservices by themselves are not enough. Well, funny, every company is just turning to microservice, and that's not enough. So what might be needed? That's it. There's something weird when we start talking about microservices. I mean, even in my community, I have a strong foot in a domain-driven design community. It's actually, there's been a revival of domain-driven design just because of microservices. Because, well, good leaders from a microservices community are saying, like, well, in order to do it right, you have to look at things like bounded context idea that came from the domain-driven design field. But then when we talk about microservices, we get feedback like this one. Like, I was the only person in a microservices conference to do event-driven. Everybody else was doing request reply in real time. And ouch, that sounds pretty bad. And another feedback, customers are asking me to help them coordinate microservices deployment. So we want to find a way to deploy all the microservices at the same time. And come on, a microservice is a unit of deployment. If you just separate them and then you put them together, you're just burning budget, delivering nothing, and just adding a pile of technology. And what is the value? You have to release them independently. That was the point from the very beginning. However, and then we get this type of feedback like, yeah, at the end, microservices are just like SOA. But the real message is just we screwed up with SOA, we can screw it up with microservices too, just exactly applying the same recipe. Okay, I don't want to dig that much about it, but there's a lot of stuff inside here. This is kind of scary because like, I feel like it is a technology going to change things, and then you have people in places just taking a technology which is good, its promises is just valuable, and then whoop, turning into something which is just another way to burn budget. Okay, there's something else which is relevant. Actually, the book is saying, I would like to get away from the book as soon as possible, but this last thing is actually really relevant. There is one key factor at the architectural level which is associated with business level and technology level success, which is how loosely coupled the architecture is. Well, that's interesting. So they are explicitly mentioning the idea of bounded context, but I might even tell you the reason why in practice is just like you can't have a quick release cycles if you mix too many things together. You have the need of having a small team working on a small portion of the system, interacting with a small portion of the business, and delivery. That's the main idea behind it. And this is working. This is them working. Good stuff. The other factor is culture. So as Boss said before, we just hire some DevOps. Well, you can probably hire somebody pretending to be a DevOps, but the real point is why nobody inside your company emerged as a local advocate of the DevOps culture. It's just like there is a reason why DevOps has been starting somewhere else and not in your company, and the reason has a lot more to do with culture. So you can't just go DevOps in a vacuum. They talk a lot about culture as a key factor for differentiating the probability of success, and there's an interesting classification in coming from Westrum, which is pathological, power-oriented, when most of the decision-making is just like power play, my department budget versus your department budget, individual goals between managers and stuff like this. More bureaucratic, so there is a little bit less Game of Thrones behavior between the top management, but still we are following the rules. You know, the procedure to get approved is just this and this. So, well, we would like to do this. Oh, we need to get so many permissions. So you can't actually have quick release cycles because of the bureaucracy. Okay. And the good culture is what is called generative, performance-oriented, which makes you feel like, okay, we have an idea, we tried, it's working. I mean, it's something that might be similar to the lean startup idea, but it's not the only one. It's just like a place where idea experimented quickly, the organization is learning, and then we try something different, and we became better. That's more or less the classification. It sounds like pretty obvious that the last one is working. But one of the findings from the book is also, well, actually, technology might shape the culture to a given extent. So if it just triggers behaviors and actions which are forcing a different type of interaction between people, actually, you can shift the direction of your culture, whatever that means. So now, I started like a technical talk. Now I'm talking about culture. And I don't want to get into the definition of culture because whatever I'm going to say is going to be wrong given the lens that you're looking at it. So I won't even try to get a precise definition. I just want to have an actionable definition for the purpose of this talk. And this is my definition. And I don't even know what is the science that studies the culture, maybe anthropology or something. I don't care. Just like, but for me, a culture is a cumulative effect of a winning behavior within a given context. I will give you an example so that this is not like too much in the air. So with a lot of stereotypes, I'm Italian, as you probably already got, just like I'm going to talk about the bus ticket. So this is a typical Italian bus. You probably, if you are Italian, you probably even were on something like that. And there's something interesting about the way we go on this bus, which is, well, when the bus stops, we just go in. We are Italians. We don't follow queues or line. We just go in. And all the 3 doors are open. We just go on the bus. There's even something more. You cannot buy the purchase on the bus in most of Italian cities. You just have to buy the ticket in a tobacco shop, in a newspaper shop, in some other places, or in vending machines. That is interesting, because sometimes you don't have the ticket and you want to go on the bus, and then if you go on the bus without the ticket, with the best intention, you can't buy the ticket on the bus. That might be interesting. But the other thing is just, if you don't want to have the ticket, if you're a gambler, if you're a cheater, well, actually it's really safe for you. Just go on the bus from the back door and, well, pretend to look like you have a ticket. End of the story. It's also a very low-risk activity. A friend of mine at the university, when we had a lot of free time for making experiments, was actually counting. He said, like, I'm not going to buy any single bus ticket. I want to count the frequency of the times where I'm caught and see if it matters. And at that time, it just came back after 3 months. I said, like, I'm never ever buying a ticket again, because I was traveling for 3 months without a ticket. I was caught only once. I paid the fine. It was less than half of the price of a cumulative ticket. So the winning strategies don't make a ticket. We have data. Then go to a bus in a different country. I don't have the data for every single country in the world, but that's my experience while traveling. In some other countries, you just go only from the front door, you talk with the driver, and you buy the ticket, or you stamp the ticket in front of the driver. See the interaction. The interaction is completely changed. If you don't have a ticket, you have to look in the eyes of the driver and pretend that you have a ticket that you don't have. And then the driver is going to tell you something, you're going to be blocking everybody, it's going to feel embarrassing, and it's not going to work. So the interaction is designed in a way that might slow in boarding and onboarding operation a little, because every time you go on the bus, you have to put the ticket. Well, you just prepare the ticket before going out. The behavior starts to change. But if I don't pay, the blame factor becomes bigger. Everybody's looking at me. I'm slowing down everybody. The peer pressure, just like, you don't have a ticket, you stay down, get your money, and get on the next bus. Not on this one. We are in a hurry, and you are slowing us down. Cheating becomes a loser's behavior. So, as a result, people stop cheating. And for me, it's actually funny to see that, well, most of the Italian buses are still having this implicit rule, like boarding and onboarding is the most important thing, while it's not, actually. Just like we might even slow things down a little, and it might be getting faster later on. And then, well, just yesterday, there was this little scandal of the bus ticket, so all my slides are even obsolete, because you can cheat with the system in so many interesting ways. So let's not even talk about it. The thing which is relevant for me is just this is a design choice, is a way of deciding how to use a given tool which is shaping the interaction. With multiple doors, we can avoid the conversation, we can avoid eye-to-eye contact with the driver, while with a single door, we have to have this eye-to-eye contact and pretend we are not cheating. This creates a little bit more pressure, and then we end up behaving like good boys. So that's my first idea, like the fact that we are in a place where there is not a clear separation anymore between that's an architectural problem, that's a process problem, that's a technology problem. It's not. It's just like now we're talking about culture as a driving factor for success, And we never talk about culture. We are technical people. We are developers. Still, we are coding, and we're feeling good or bad while coding in different ways. So what I would like to talk about is the two thinking tools that I discovered I use a lot, and now I try to not exactly formalize because they're fuzzy, but just to give an idea about how can you quickly get a grasp of where are we? Is this a healthy place or not? Is this a place where it can actually deliver or not? Because technology is not giving us the right answer. So let's start with one. This is what I call the pink check. And can I ask a little water from? Yeah, thank you. So when I say pink, I mean Daniel Pink, and I mean basically this book. I've been lurking around this. Thank you. This concept for a long time, and I realize it's actually actionable. So what Daniel Pink is saying, just like this book, Drive, is a book about motivation. It's about what is driving humans to do a good job, and it boils down to three factors. Every professional, every human just wants to have these three things in place. Want to have autonomy, want to be able to perform without being blocked by somebody else, want to be able to show some degree of mastery, wants to feel good in what he or she does, and wants to have a purpose. So I'm not coding just for coding, I'm coding to make something useful for somebody. I want to feel like I'm doing a good job, and nobody really feels like, I would like to write the worst possible code ever. Nobody starts a project with the idea of turning into the biggest ball of mud. Everybody is driven by the idea of, this time, I would like to make something good. And I need also to feel that I'm good in what I do. This makes so much sense, then I realized it was just like a continuous afterthought every time I was working. So I called the pink check because I ask in every context, how are we rating related to these three key things? So let's take a simple scenario, what I call the builders team. Actually, it's pretty close to the idea of DevOps team, even if it was happening before the term DevOps was famous. So we have a great team, really good performance, good coders, and taking care of the whole stuff, working on a great product. They created it, they built it, it's growing on the market, and they get positive feedback loop. I mean, the market is using the tool is growing, and sometimes you make mistakes and just recover them, but yeah, it's kind of working. Is it working on the pink check autonomy? Yes, we built it. We know every corner of it. Yes, we don't need external help. We are creators. Startups are working exactly like this. Startups are not depending on external entities, or if they do, they usually die. Mastery, yes, people were making mistakes. They were growing. They were doing PDD, good architecture, and of course they were screwing things up sometimes. But the fun thing was whenever they discovered they made a mistake, they corrected it. That was part of their job. They wanted to feel good. They wanted to feel in control. They wanted to be proud of their work. So it was working. Purpose, yes, that was the purpose. It was building something. That was already driving something. I don't know exactly part of this story about what was the connection with the users, the market, but the feeling of we're building something good, something which is working, something that people are using. Well, that's a good feedback. Okay, keep on rocking. Let's do this. So this is more or less the way I deal with this type of check, and this is telling me, okay, that's a pretty healthy situation. Of course, this is something that we rarely see as consultants. Consultants are usually invited when the situation is crappy, and so we don't see the magical nirvana because you don't need consultants in those spaces. And the fun thing is just the same team 6 months later or sometimes later was actually in a completely different place. So the people and the culture were supposed to be exactly the same, and there was a little change. We have a new platform, and we're using this platform instead. So the pink check 6 months later, what is the autonomy of the team? Gone. So instead of building things, I mean, if you build something, you have total control about whatever you're doing, but now you're on the platform, so there's something that you cannot change. And that something was actually ugly, but they cannot change it. So you could even feel the anger and the frustration of, I'm supposed to be running on top of this one, and I don't want. I hate this box, basically. What about the mastery? Well, I could be a master in creating stuff, but mastery on customizing, on tweaking, on finding loopholes in the configuration actually made everybody feel dirty, didn't work. And the purpose, well, the purpose was, boom, vanished. So the thing that was happening, just like, yeah, why are we doing this? Just paying the bills, and then, gone. Okay, I'm seeing people that have been there, so, yeah. So the purpose is actually gone. But I need to say something more about the purpose, because I wasn't thinking this was part of my job as a consultant, but it turned out to be a great part of my job in the last years. So this is what I do most of the time. I just try to help companies understand what you're doing. This is the whole business flow. This is what happens in a large storming workshop. But the best days are the days where we end up with something like this, when we have this fantastic clarity about the company purpose. Who are we making happy at the end of the day? What is the value that we are delivering? When you have a room full of people, business people and software developers that actually understand, oh, so this is what we are delivering. These are the person that we're making happy. Might be our users, might be our employees, might be our customers, might be whoever, but there is somebody that we're making happy at the end of the flow. And the result is something actually magic, just like, I want to solve that problem. I want to solve exactly that problem that is bugging that human being at the end of the flow. And I've seen places in company where the morning after, they were completely transformed. We want to solve this problem. Let's have a session where we understand deeply this problem. Let's open the idea. I want to make a prototype. I want to put this in production. I want to make this person happy as quickly as possible. Well, that's exactly what is a quick feedback loop. That's exactly the idea behind the DevOps also. Just like having a clear purpose, having a quick road to delivery, making somebody happy, enjoy the big thank you. That's the main driver. That's my second check. That's the feedback, my second thinking tool, what I call the feedback check. Still similar, but the question is something like, which are the feedback channels for the team? How can we know we're doing a good job? It's just like, that's actually really important. Just like if you're just coding in a vacuum, assuming that, yes, you're just supposed to deliver sprint number 6, and you just follow what is in the backlog, and come on, this is so boring. It's bureaucracy. That's not what we are here for. So, but the most important question, I mean, it's actually black, well, and the other are grays, but the difference is not so striking. But the most important question, the most actionable maybe, are the last two. How does good and bad feedback arrive? And how long should I wait for good and bad feedback? And I flip the colors because actually good feedback and bad feedback have completely different paths. So let's make a quick check on the DevOps just to make sure we are on the right spot. Well, we get feedback from users and metrics right after we release. We look at analytics, we look at the logs, we look at the monitoring, we see the user interaction. Looks like, okay, well, this stuff is working. A/B testing, we can see that this is actually working. And usually, the developers are looking at the data right after. That's a great sheet. We're not waiting for a report from somebody else. We are looking at that stuff. We are learning from the user's behavior. Mistakes are removed quickly. Lower cognitive load. What I mean for that? I mean, if I did something wrong, and I will do something wrong, DevOps is not about being perfect, it's about making experiment. But if I did something wrong, and my lines of code turn out to be a bad idea, and I receive the feedback the day after, oh, that was exactly my word assumption from yesterday. I can learn a lot more from a quick feedback. So my learning is accelerated. And the other thing is, since we are learning faster, we can also sparkle new ideas. We're not following the backlog anymore. We're just shaking the backlog continuously. Let's see if we can have better ideas than the one we already have in the backlog. So the backlog is just like, yeah, the backup plan if we don't have any better ideas. Okay. One more thing, sometimes, I mean, this can be accelerated, but the business might be slow. That was something that happened in my business, like, yeah, for example, organizing training has longer feedback loops because it's subject to, let's say, budget constraints. Is actually a seasonal type of business. If you're making whiskey, well, your feedback loops with a new idea might be 18 years, unless you find a way to accelerate the seasoning cycle. So depends on the business. Not everything is as quickly as we want, but you can find the metrics to make people learn in faster, and actually it's working. Okay. Delay. The thing about delay is just it's part of the good and bad feedback cycle. So if you do one good thing and you receive a good feedback quickly, it will do it one more. It's just like so obvious. It's just like think about yourself like 2-year-old kids. At the same time, if you receive a feedback too late, it's not going to be connected to your action. So. There's something that really happened. So, now I'm thinking about my daughter when she was a one-year-old, and of course you are educating them with the balance of good and bad feedback. And oh yes, that was fantastic. Oh, come here, just like just being a good father. Or sometimes you have to say no. I remember my daughter that was starting to walk, and then. Okay, trying to put the fingers in the wall plug, that's exactly what I screamed, no! And she was paralyzed. That was the worst feedback she received ever, but was exactly at the moment she was trying to put the fingers in the plug. If I was just like taking her and then tell, oh, don't ever put the finger in the plug ever, that was not going to work. But exactly at that moment, with me screaming in terror, she was terrorized too, and she never ever tried that. So the timing is actually okay. But if you give bad feedback and the person on the other side is not connected to the fact, to the original action, well, that's not a good feedback anymore. So another thing that now might be tricky, another thing that I discovered is actually this one. People want to improve a system if they want to stay around long enough to see the benefits. So if you, that's basically the consultant's dilemma. Or if you find a horrible toilet in the highway, are you going to clean it up? Well, no. It's just like you're passing through. You won't improve the system. You will improve only system that you will stay in long enough. Consider this like a law of nature. Still, I'm trying to make actionable principles. But the thing which is very interesting for me, just like this might lead me to a time versus time comparison. This is the time needed to expect the benefits of a given action, and this is how long I'm going to stay here. If I'm going to stay here for only 2 weeks, will I try to start something that is going to turn out into something beautiful in 1 year? Probably not. Think about what I just said. Let's get back to the original slide. DevOps is working, and just like the gap between high and low performance continues to grow. If you are in a system where you have high turnover and very long feedback loop in order to see the benefit of one thing, you're not growing slowly. You're not growing at all. People will stop even trying to improve the system. You're basically screwed up. Have a nice day. So that's actually the summary. Is a pretty dark brown at all written in there. So long release cycles are actually killing your organization. And actually short on time, so I'm leaving this page to you. Run the feedback chat on the following topics: refactoring. Oh, you're going to see the benefits one day. Test-driven development, architectural migration, getting a training, and so on. Or we might have a conversation in the coffee break. I'm going to show another example, real life. So the sadness machine scenario is a large organization when they have teams working on new feature, and then other teams working on national customization on top of the finished new features, and then side teams working on customization for local installation. So that was more or less the way it was working. And I was drawing a picture, is this the way you're working? And the boss of the company was saying, yes, this is exactly the way we're working. And was looking at me with pride because he was architecting the perfect machine. And my feedback was, I would never, ever work in a place like this. Well, no, this is exactly the way it should be working. No. I would never, ever work in a place like this. That's engineer sadness. It's just like not working, but I didn't have the mechanics to explain it in a way that was understandable to this guy. Maybe I will never have, but unsurprisingly, just the evening of that workshop day, the best developer of that team had a beer with me and said, like, I'm going to quit this company tomorrow. Okay, well, I understand the reason. I actually support you. So, but now I can tell you a little bit more, like, ping check, are we autonomous? No, I am just a little cog in the machine. Can I have some mastery? No, there's nothing good that could be traced back to me. There's nothing to show like, well, look at these. No. Purpose, no, there was no possibility to understand what the code was used for. Actively prevented from having one. Positive feedback, 15 months on average between releasing a feature in production. If somebody's telling me, oh, you did a fantastic job 15 months ago, I don't even remember what you're talking about. No direct contact with the user. No possibility of having somebody smiling to me. Thank you. This screen actually saved me 3 minutes every day. I stopped me doing stupid mistakes. No possibility. Working on specification. Oh, come on, this is so boring. And always releasing to a middleman that usually you don't trust. And, yeah, doesn't work. Negative feedback. Oh, at any time. Surprising. Maybe code you wrote, maybe code somebody else wrote and then left the company, but you're blamed anyway. So it's just like you have no control on the reason, and you're always disconnected from, the code, the reason, and the people. Just, no, doesn't really work. So speed matters. Basically, this system was a reward deprivation system. We had maybe a little positive feedback at the end, maybe. Nothing in between. And the Kafkian punishment system, you were randomly punished for something you didn't do at random intervals. Would you ever work in a place like that? That was engineered to be exactly like this. Of course, it was not on purpose. They were not sadistics. But that was the result. The machine was just preventing good feedback, was just giving all the negative feedback. Fantastic, amazing job. Another real case scenario, this is happening too, just like microservices architecture, so it's new stuff. A new service depending on 12 external services synchronously. I mean, the way of interacting with those external services is just like mandated by the architectural team. So you're probably smelling that this is probably a bank or an insurance company or something like that. And can we do loose coupling? Can we be event-driven? No, it has to be synchronous. At the same time, those external services are completely unreliable. There was not a single moment during development time when all those 12 services were up at the same time. And you have to depend on all of those. And of course, you are requested to provide an SLA. I mean, I'm on top of 12 dumb morons, and I have to guarantee that I will deliver. No, doesn't make any sense. So let's run the check again. Autonomy, no, I am at the mercy of everybody else. Mastery, no, I'm just killing my master. I try to do things, and you're telling me, no, don't do good stuff. Do crappy stuff. This is our company specification. We do crappy stuff. It's just in the guidelines. Okay. And what is the purpose? Well, the purpose is just get out of here alive. Just like try to finish and try to get out from here. Positive feedback. The probability of a good positive feedback is really, really low. You might get good user interaction in the opening screens before connecting to the external services. That's it. And again, working on specification, not talking with the real user, middleman that you stop trusting the moment you talk with him, fantastic. And negative feedback, again, at any time, for those and no reason, that you have no control over. Each one of the 12 services could be down, and it's your fault. Can you feel this emotion? Just like, would you be in a place like this, working on top of something you don't trust? This is fear. This is completely, I would say now it's totally unacceptable. And it's not because of ethic reasons. This is just because, like, well, developers are starting to be a pretty good requested profession in the job market, so you can find a better place to work. So if I have to choose between working in a place where fear is a dominant emotion and working in a place where thank you is a dominant emotion, guess my choice. And the other funny thing is, actually, good developers are okay in paying for their own mistakes. They just hate paying for someone else's ones. We can be paid to do the cleanup, the recovery, and to improve stuff. But if I have to stay in the weekend because of somebody else writing a horrible store procedure or stuff like this, well, the feeling inside of the brain, you know that feeling. What I'm trying to say is a strong connection between safety, responsibility. If I am safe, if I am in control of my boundary, I will take on my responsibility and I will be proud of my result. It won't happen if this safety is not preserved. So I'm getting to the summary, and that's a surprise because I'm just like 2 minutes to the end. So, thing number one, buy a copy for this book, buy 2, one for you, one for your boss, put it under the tree for Christmas, and then in the last page, you can grab a marker and write a big, I told you. The other thing for me is just like everything is connected. The idea of talking about a Gordian knot is not because I can cut it like Alexander, it's because you cannot pretend anymore that this is an architectural problem, this is a process problem, this is a recruiting problem, or this is an HR problem, or a culture problem. Everything is connected. Architecture is shaping the culture. Architecture is just constraining the way you can recruit people and stuff like this. Again, it's an ecosystem. It's not orthogonal disciplines. Emotions matter. Just, it's part of our job. Coding when you're happy, coding when you're looking for a thank you at the end, or coding when you're angry with your colleague. Is it the same work? It's not. This is probably the most important one because you are software architects. So I will say it loud again. Your architectural choices will shape interaction and culture. An architecture which is strictly coupled will force too many meetings between people in order to be safe. Fear will be the dominant emotion, and risk aversion will be the dominant trait in this culture. Loosely coupled architecture, while you're safer, you can make experiment, you make more frequent experiment, you learn faster, you get the thank you, you're happier, and you have more children at the end, and the world will be a better place. It's kind of different. Bounded context, yes. Safety, 2 faces of the same coin. That's really quick, but I have to put it. Stop splitting monolith, making microservices around data tables, please, because this is just like paying money for a new technology and keeping the coupling from the past wrong choices. Think about this. This is your safety net when somebody's talking with you. I have a long-term goals and they have a short-term goals. If the goals are aligned, the time frame should be aligned. And this is my actually last slide. So look at your purpose, find it, discover what is the thing that is going to make users happy. Get your thank you, and this is the end of my talk. I will be around for every other stuff because there's a lot of stuff here, and if we drill down, could take for ages. Thank you for being here, and have a great day.